Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the live weekend review version of Celtic Down Under. It's been a while between live drinks, guys. So anyone that wants to get involved in the comments, I apologise for any rustiness in my skills, if I ever had any, at moderation of comments. Anthony, how you doing?
I'm well, Sean. Had my parents up for the weekend, having a pre-Christmas because I won't be able to see them over Christmas and Boxing Day, so that was nice. Had a bit of a therapy session with my dad on the balcony on Sunday morning, a bit of a debrief after sitting up to 1 a.m. watching that. But
was that about Celtic or about your other countless problems, Anthony?
No, it was about Celtic. There's not enough time in the day to sort other problems. But no, just kidding. So that was really nice. So really nice weekend. I obviously caught up with your guys' podcast for Axom. So I watched yours this morning, Paul, and I'm halfway watching through yours, Sean. So they were both very therapeutic because obviously not currently focusing on our current issues, but just a bit of a look back at Aussies playing for Celtic. And I was quite interested with you and Liam's chat about how to make Scottish football better, Sean. So
we solved the problems.
Well, you're just touching on. Well, you're halfway through talking about referees at the moment, but two very good pods if you're looking for something outside the usual sort of Celtic minutiae. I definitely recommend checking them out. They're the collaborations with Axom and Celtic Down Under, raising money for wee Jamie Tierney, which was a very worthwhile cause. So well done, guys.
Yeah, it's good effort by everyone that volunteered in the Axom crew. It's it's a lot of work. As you guys know from just doing one show, so if you can imagine doing a whole weekend of it, Paul, absolute hero there in that sense. And our Paul, how are you doing?
I was like, I'm getting called a hero for 1 hour. I'm good. I had my social football drinks and sort of dinner and drinks on Friday night, so that was good crack. And then obviously involved yesterday, as Anthony said, on the charity weekend for Axon, which was great. Sandwiched in between by something we'd rather not dwell on, but we're about to spend an hour on. So
I honestly found that Axom show very therapeutic to be talking about something that wasn't like, because when I was going into the game, I was like, I can't think about anything other than this Hearts game. And then once I 2 minutes into it, I was like, I actually found it very, very enjoyable to think about something else for a bit.
Yeah, well, here we are. Well, on ours, Steve, before ours, Steve was like, are we going to discuss the game at all? And I was like, well, I don't think we can ignore it entirely. I think we got to at least sort of make a passing reference to it, but that's not what the weekend's about. It's not what the show is supposed to be about. It's not what the event is supposed to be about. And we curated a show to sort of, I guess, specifically sort of be about Celtic Down Under, which was the Celtic's greatest ever Aussie stuff. And yeah, same point. Like we knew we were coming on tonight to do it. We didn't necessarily know we were going to be live, but we knew we were coming on to discuss this. And every other Celtic pod has gone over yesterday, and today we'll cover it in massive amounts of depth. So it was nice. Like, I agree with you. It was nice to just not deal with it immediately, and maybe a few hours down the track we'll view things slightly differently to the immediate aftermath.
Let me start then with my cold light of day take. Okay, I'm still not happy, still raging, all that stuff, right? But here's another take: 77% possession, 22 shots, 5 of them on target. That's inept attacking, as far as I'm concerned. Look at Hearts: 5 shots, 2 on target. So 100% of their shots on target are goals. Okay, how often do we actually? Here's another point as well. We had 18 corners, they had 3. So we talked about this before. Your normal conversion rate for a corner these days is somewhere between 1 in 50 or 1 in 70, depending on your league and personnel. So pretty low conversion percentage. Okay, Hearts had 3, scored 1 of them. We had 18. I don't think we got a shot on target from any of them. So I guess the question here is, is that a statistical? Was yesterday a statistical aberration? Was it a statistical anomaly, or were we really that bad? And again, we lost, right? So no matter what you say, were we more bad attacking, bad at finishing? You know, was it just a combination of lots of things coming together, or was it as bad as a 2-0 defeat at home makes it look? Paul,
you can kind of go two ways on this. So the defending was atrocious, as it has been regularly. That's that 1 in 50, 1 in 70. You know, if you look at that in theory, then that means defensively you would lose 1 in 50 or 1 in 70 from corners. We lose, well, 1 in 3 this week. We lost one at, you know, we lose nearly a goal every game or every other game from corners in the last little run. So clearly we're bumping up those stats significantly at the minute.
I
So
don't think before the last 3 games, before this the last run of games, I think it was the first game of the season against Ross County. It was the last time, so we did have a good run of games there before without conceding one. But you're right.
Yeah, I just mean like in the immediate. Yeah, we just seem to be making. I've in sort of making. I only made a handful of notes before because it's kind of unfortunately ingrained in the brain after how horrific it was. But just schoolboy defending from corners of late, bullied, bad matchups, not, you know, getting entangled. So defensively, that's one major issue. But even more concerningly for me, attacking wise, we look toothless. We've got tons of possession. We've got lots of territory. We do nearly nothing with it. I can think of 2 clear chances that we should probably score. And on another day we do. And if we take at least one of them, you know, the momentum shift. Well, you take the first one, the momentum shifts. You take both of them, obviously we get at least a point. And those chances.
Are you referring to Palman
Kyogo at the start of the half? Mm-hmm. He's got to do better, but he's so starved of opportunity that it's not a huge surprise that he doesn't convert it. And similarly, Maeda right at the death. He's just back from injury, a bit rusty, but he should probably get on the end of that. They're the two I would call, they were pretty gilt-edged chances.
What about the Palmer?
And if we
in the first half,
well, yeah,
pretty block.
It's a decent block. He has to wait for it to come down. He probably should do better, a bit more composure. But you know, you can argue toss about that. Those other two, those players on their day and on form and fit and firing, they take both. Like last season, both of those get scored, is my opinion. And there's a much bigger issue, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in detail in terms of creating of chances. But that's, for me, that's the problem. We aren't creating it. Like 18 corners is fine, but the majority of those come from us not getting good crosses into the box. Like Mikey Johnson goes down and hits the first defender and it goes out for a corner. They're quite happy with that because they've got time to set up, and we are hopeless on corners. So they defend it quite comfortably pretty much every time if it comes in. And then if we don't swing it in, we're faffing about out on short corners and just creating a different angle to then swing it in or lose it, and they snuff it out again. So I'm like, we've got concerns at both ends of the pitch, but I just don't know tactically what we're trying to do, and selection wise, even more so. That's even more of a head scratcher for me. So there's just kind of a bit of a we've got injuries, and that is a valid concern. But I think if you had a
sorry, I'm going to stop here because I'm sick of hearing this. We've got two players that are injured. 2 players.
We have at the moment, but over the course of this season, we've never had the full team out. I don't think we've had the best 11 hasn't been available. Well, the point I was going to make, however, was if we had a proper identity and a tactical outlook that was consistent, it shouldn't make as big a difference as it seems to be making on personnel, because those coming in would slot in. If you without harking back, well, we are going to hark back to Ange because that's the obvious comparison. It didn't. I made the point elsewhere earlier today that if Ange was still in the role and dealing with the exact same set of circumstances, with exact same personnel, and having to rely on the likes of Mikey Johnson, etc., they would all at least know their role. They would be well drilled. and the team would look vaguely like its best incarnation, even if it wasn't performing to its best. I don't think this team's got an identity in terms of how they play. It now starts to feel like Brendan Rodgers wants to play a specific way. He hasn't got the personnel to do it. Instead of adapting and playing to the strengths of the team and the players that are available to him, he's sort of stubbornly going along with how he would like to play. And then he's coming back with the same old excuse: we don't have the quality, we need the quality.
Yeah, I'm pretty sick of hearing that one. Anthony?
Me too.
Paul just said exactly what I was about to say. Yeah, the team lacks an identity. It does. I mean, we seem to just be all over the place at the moment. It's no wonder that Kyogo, and to a lesser extent, don't know whether they're coming or going, because they don't know where the service is going to land. We've basically done away with cutting to the byline and cutting it back, which I don't know if the last 2 seasons has worked pretty well for us. To now having wingers that constantly cut in. And then what happens? You just play the ball side to side along the edge of the box, go out to the other side, back out. Eventually, either a long range effort, which is where your 5 shots on target, Sean, pretty much came from. They were all sort of like long range speculative efforts. And you can't unpick a defense. And I wouldn't say that Hearts really sat in. I mean, they sat in more as the game went on, and obviously near the end they were wasting time and defend a 2-0 lead. But we didn't really, apart from that Kyogo chance early in the second half, we didn't really look like we were going to score, and that's a concern. All right, we'll compare it to Ange's previous 2 seasons. Like, we might have been a goal down, but you always felt we were good for 2 or 3 goals. Like, you just knew it was coming. It was like inevitable. But now it's just like you're just sitting there going, why is our centre halves having to play the through ball, that really deft pass that needs to unlock a defense? Why is it up to Scales and Carter Vickers? Why are they doing it? Where's your on ball creative players? McGregor, I think, had a terrible game, but like him, O'Reilly, they're the guys you want playing that pass. But unfortunately for us, we're in a situation at the moment where we're that slow getting up and transitioning that it ends up being the centre halves that are having to play these balls. It's not fair on them, and it's turgid to watch. So you've got this real quagmire because the football's not entertaining. Although we've got 77% possession, we just again pass it side to side. Your wingers are basically nullified because they keep cutting in. All right, the quality on the right isn't really there with Mikey Johnson, and we'll get back to that. But it comes back to Paul's point. Like, if you've got a system and everyone knows how to play the system, then injuries are mitigated by the fact that, well, all right, I'm going out of this position. I've been trained in the ground how to do this position. And yeah, you get some sort of semblance of a performance. But the team just seems to doesn't really know what it's doing. And that's the problem. And I can see why Kyogo's off the boil. I think personally he's off the boil. But then secondly, he's still making those runs that we just can't seem to find him. And this is like his 3rd season. So you think we'd maybe have clicked on to how to find him. But on top of that, we're just not playing that simple cutback. And the other point I want to just make quickly before we flick over is tactically, Rodgers got it wrong. I mean, if Maeda's fit enough to sit in the bench, he's fit enough to start. And if Maeda at 80% is still better than Mikey Johnson at 100%. So he should have started. And the other head scratcher for me is why Bernardo didn't start in the head of Turnbull. I mean, he keeps doing this, rotating through players. And it's and then he rotates his bench as well. Lagerbielke scored a winner in Europe, not on the bench. I can't understand it. I just can't see a pattern or thinking to.
He was on the halftime show, Lagerbielke. they put out an interview with him on the halftime show.
Yeah, no, I saw that as I was sort of just quietly raging to my dad. But I can't work out the system. I can't work out this rotation. It's like rotation for rotation's sake, rather than it being picked on any sort of obvious performance on the park. Because you knew David Turnbull wasn't going to work. David Turnbull, Matt O'Reilly in the same team against a decent opposition hasn't worked all season. So he drags them at half time.
Again.
And then you're thinking well, where's the surprise in that? That was a bum mistake to make in the first place. And then, like I said, the other two issues for me. One is where we're totally all over the place from a playing point of view, and then secondly is the team selection, again, head scratchers nearly every week. Ange was pretty predictable. We picked his best 11. It was you could pretty much pick it week in, week out. With Brendan, it's really a coin toss at the moment, and yeah, it's a concern, and that for me is the biggest issue, is that's not a quick, easy fix. And the second thing is, even if you sign a couple of players in January, not to mention we've still got 4 games to go before the January window opens, I don't think that's going to necessarily fix it either.
Just looking at the Celtic calendar for 2024, in September of next year, 2024, has the team of David Turnbull and Gustav Lagerbielke in September. I'm sure the kids will look forward to September next year when they have to see those two ex-players staring back at them. It's bizarre. On the just before we move on from and start getting into some of the more details, Mahesh has posted some stuff that we'll get into in a second. My personal, and just quickly, you can say if you agree or disagree with this without coming too much time on it, but my personal feeling was, yeah, we lost 2-0. Yeah, this is the worst result we've had in years. I thought we actually didn't play as poorly as we had against St Johnstone and Kilmarnock, if I'm being totally honest. I thought we were worse in those two games, and we won the St Johnstone game and only lost late in the Kilmarnock game. Am I wrong?
I think for me, Kilmarnock was more erratic. Like, we were way worse in parts than we probably ever got to in this game. But I felt like there was a good 20-30 minutes where the game should have been wrapped up first half. Whereas I don't think we've really ever got going in this game. Like, I don't think we didn't react until halftime. Like, even when we go down 2-0, you don't get a reaction. There's not an obvious intensity shift. It's still.
I'd say maybe for about 5 minutes, Paul, I thought we did lift it a bit, but then it all puffed out, and then by the end of the half, we're back to the way we were before. So I agree in part with what you're saying, but I think there was
the lift in tempo comes from the 3 changes at halftime. Now, it shouldn't need to get to that point. There should be a reaction after the first goal, and there isn't. Like, the first goal, AJ particularly, but also Scales need a right good hoof up their backsides. And who's doing that? Hart should be doing that. The skipper should be doing that.
I think you're harsh on Scales there, to be honest. It's not his fault.
Well, he manages to get himself involved in a sandwich. The communication's poor. Like, and regardless, right? They're the 2 nearest defenders. AJ is the marker, but how you let their only danger man drift off completely unmarked at the back post and pop in a simple header, it's on all of them, right? It's the unit needs to get blamed, but they're sort of tripping over each other along with whoever the player in the middle was. It's just really, really poor. It's really poor.
Their second goal is a freak, because how often does a team other than Tav Penn, how often do teams score direct free kicks against us in Scotland? It just doesn't happen.
As soon as they set up, I thought he was going to score. As soon as this, because it just had it all over it, right? The game was going negatively. It's not a foul. That's the first thing you should say. It's not a foul. But Clancy had, we've got bigger issues than referees, but Clancy had a shocker again all day long. Standard poor performance from referees, but that's never a foul as long as your passport's down. But he gives it, as soon as he sets it up, Joe Hart's at fault. He give very much like the Feyenoord one. He gives too much space and too much opportunity in the far corner. And if he was younger and quicker, he may be able to set up like that and get across. For me, he's got to take an extra step closer to that side. And if he gets beaten on the nearer side, well, it's got to have to be a worldie, right? So he's at fault. But Kingsley's got that in his locker, right? He's got that in his locker. He's got a great strike on him. and you give him enough room. It's a perfect distance. He's got enough room to get it up and down pretty comfortably. Look how low it is. Very similar to the Feyenoord goal. It goes in pretty low by the time it gets in. So, I thought the writing was on the wall as soon as that was given. I thought we were in real trouble.
It rattled Hart as well because he was punching instead of catching crosses that he should have been absolutely collecting thereafter. And he was getting dogs abuse from the crowd, Joe Hart, because not for the goal, but for what he was doing afterwards.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Flapping.
And to be honest, I really he didn't have a great game, but obviously he's coming to the end of his tenure, but I really felt for him because it's clear he was having a rough time of it. And when your own fans are sort of getting on your back to that degree, like that sarcastic jeering when he did catch one second half, it's not cool, right? I don't think that's becoming of a proper Celtic support faithful through. I know it's all platitudes and people are frustrated, but come on, we don't have an option, right? We've got to stick with him at least until January. So we've got 4, like you say, we've got 4 big games. And it hasn't looked like he's going to even be upgraded in January. So we might have to stick with him to the end of the season. What's our options? Bain or your man Ben, who's always on holiday with his missus down here in Australia. We're stuck with Joe Hart, right? So we need to get behind him. We need to, we need to push on through. It's not perfect. It's not ideal. Nobody really wants that to be the case. We've been flawed by not replacing that position sooner, or at least bringing adequate competition in. But part of that's on Siegrist as well. He should be pushing. He should be breathing down Hart's neck for that jersey, and he clearly isn't arsed. He's clearly not bothered. He's clearly not
only
focused.
Interested in this hole at the moment.
Well, more
wrong?
arrogantly put than I was gonna. No, well, it certainly seems that way. If he can't get the second jersey off Bain, he's clearly checked out. So I guess that sort of the atmosphere was toxic before the end. And I've not got too many concerns.
Booing at half time, so it was.
Yeah, well, I've not got too many concerns.
They booed Santa.
Booing Santa. I've got some concerns with booing Santa. I've got no real concerns with booing the team off at halftime because it was absolutely inept. And I've got no real concerns with having a pop at the board because they're long overdue a pop.
Oh, but I'm going to step in on that one and come back to that one.
But I'm not going to go any further on it. But getting on Santa's back, unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. And having a major crack at Joe Hart, I get it's frustrating, but it's
especially had a good performance.
There's nothing good that can come of that, right? Frustrating.
Yeah. So I'll come back to the board thing because I do have a whole point to make on that, right? But I'm going to tee you up, Anthony, for this with some of these stats that Mahesh has got, because I think you wanted to chime on this anyway. So he's got Celtic 40 crosses, 7 accurate. I couldn't even pick out 7 accurate ones, so fair play where those stats are coming from. Mickey J, 4 crosses, none of them on target, and I think we had some other stats lined up around his dribbling success up against Cochrane, which was not glowing. He's also said O'Reilly getting into position in the box. Mickey J in particular, didn't find him. Is that name again?
Yep, I remember that a couple of times. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry for hiding you, Paul. Here, we'll bring you back in a minute. O'Reilly getting half his touches on the left, where Turnbull was, compromising the attacking threat on the right, and Turnbull was the one that was grinding my gears the most in the first half, just strolling about, driving me insane. I was so angry at him.
That's what he does, though.
I know, but it was even worse. Like when you're 1-0 down, right? Like at least pretend. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then the last one here, O'Reilly getting more touches in the box than Kyogo and all combined in games. The problem is it affects his passing distribution game if he's too far forward. So the points being there, O'Reilly's all over the place, in a literal sense, not in a execution sense. And Mikey Johnson and any other winger not having any quality into the box. Anthony?
Well, there was a couple of occasions where Palmer sort of whipped a ball across back to AJ. So AJ was sort of coming onto the edge of the box. And you're thinking, surely AJ's pass is a pass out wide for the winger to run onto to whip the ball back in. And where's Mikey Johnson? He's in the middle, stand next to Kyogo. And I'm thinking, that's not where you should be. He nullified her with when he should have been wide. And then when he does get the ball in a wide position, either, as Paul says, He rattles it off the defender for a corner, which is as good as giving them a bye kick because, you know, our conversion rate from corners is rubbish. And then the odd occasion where he does manage to get a cross in, the obvious ball was the cut back to Matt O'Reilly. There was one where Matt O'Reilly screaming at him in the first half. All he has to do, well, obviously it was the first half, so he dragged at half time, cut it back to him. And then Matt O'Reilly's in that channel. And then you know what happens then. Matt O'Reilly either usually takes a quick shot or he'll cut it back from inside that channel. And then that's where your Keel goes and players like that have the joy. But just his decision making. And this has been the $64,000 question that's been lumped at Mikey Johnson his entire Celtic career is, what's the end product? You know, he can have all the tricks in the toolbox. He can dazzle. He can beat the same player 2-3 times. Great. He can't even do that sometimes. But ultimately, at the end of the day, a winger's determined on assists and delivering the ball into the box. And he can't do it. And I know, right, we've got a few players out injured and, you know, we're a bit stretched. But he needs to find a career somewhere else. And I've had enough. I'm done. I'll be willing to give him one more chance. Mikey Johnston's career has been at a crossroads at this club for the last 4 or 5 years. You know, a few years ago, he had youth on his side. You're thinking maybe he'll get better. But no, sorry. Like, yeah, Harry Cochrane's not a bad defender, but he looked like bloody Roberto Carlos in comparison to, like, you know, what he was up against. And it's just not good enough. It's not Celtic standards, Celtic quality, whatever you want to call it. Mikey Johnston's not it. So
it doesn't matter who the Hearts left back is. If they were good enough if they were better than the Celtic right winger, they wouldn't be at Hearts for more than 5 minutes. And Cochrane has been at Hearts for I don't even know how long, years, right? So are we actually saying he's that good and he's just gone under the radar? Would you have him ahead of Taylor? You wouldn't be ahead of Greg Taylor. No way.
He totally had him in his pocket as well, Sean. So I mean, performance from that day.
I agree. But that's
absolutely right.
It's on Johnson rather than on Cochrane, is what I'm saying.
Palmer, I thought, had a reasonable game. I think he whips in a dangerous ball. Yeah. Palmer's problem is he cuts in too much. And he needs to get to the byline more and play that ball across from the byline. And that's a tactical thing. He can do it, but he chooses to just come inside and play the easy square pass, retain possession, because is that what Brendan wants? Probably. So for me, he's not got that extra bit of pace that Jota had. He's not quite as, you know, nimble with the ball at his feet as Jota was, but he still delivers a really, really good cross when he gets the space to deliver it. So you've got to find a way to utilize that. And as I said before, Maeda should have started. Maeda at the start of a game, he wears a Harry Cochrane down. And then, all right, if he blows a gasket at 60 minutes, then, all right, bring on Mikey Johnson or James Forrest or whoever's on the bench. And then at least then he's wore that fullback down a bit, and maybe that fullback's picked up a booking. But, you know, it was never going to happen against Mikey Johnson because he was just coughing the ball up. And yeah, I'm being critical, but, you know, we lost and he's just not up to it. And I haven't seen anything in any of his performances to me suggest that he's come on enough to warrant staying in the squad. So I think Abada comes back, you know, it should be a case of, you know, he shouldn't be making the squad as far as I'm concerned. Because to be fair, I thought Forrest did a reasonable job when he came on.
He got the highest rating in the BBC for a Celtic player.
You know, he was direct. He was direct, and he tried to commit his fullback, which no one else had done. Right, Miera had a crack. Like he tried to use his gas to get back, to get past. My issue with Mikey Johnston is when he came on and had that 45 minutes. Maybe it was against St Johnstone. We were so inept in the first half that him showing a little bit of intent and going at his man was enough for us all to say. Was certainly enough for me to say, he needs to start the next game. He's done enough to start the next game, but he's now had 3 starts in a row and he's done zip. So sooner or later, you've got to take a chance here if you're him. And he's 24 years old. Yes, he's had injuries, but he's now had a run of this is my other grievance is he gets a run of 3 games in a row on very little initial sort of performance. You got a guy like Tilio who gets 20 minutes, 25 minutes off the bench the first time he's on and does okay. He doesn't set the place on fire, but he's direct. He looks to get at his man, and then he disappears and you don't see him. guys like Bernardo are good enough for the Champions League, and at least have got energy, composure. You know, he's not going to carve open a defense, but equally he's not going to give anything away cheap. And he's got work rate, and he can't get a regular game. And Turnbull's keep getting back and coming in. You've got guys like Home, who I think there's a talented player in there. And if he gets 3 starts, maybe he gets a run of confidence and sort of builds up, right? But he's not getting it. No one else seems to get the, I don't know, the latitude that Mikey Johnson has just got in the last 3.5 games. For me, I agree with Anthony. He's absolutely done. He should be nowhere near the team again. If it was me, I'd be playing Palmer on the right and Maeda on the left from the next game onwards, because it does 2 things. It forces Palmer to get on. His right foot's his better one, right? So it gets him to the byline, and then he's swinging crosses in. They're going to be more dangerous. And 2, Maeda gives Taylor the coverage that he's been badly missing. And I think that's one of the reasons why Greg Taylor has been suffering, because he hasn't had Maeda in front of him and given him that extra energy and protection. So you kind of do 2 things at once by swapping wings. Do I have any expectation that will actually happen? Not really, because I feel like everything that you note and think would make sense, Rodgers does the opposite or something even weirder.
So
And we're
I
playing
agree
that.
with what you're saying, both of you, about Palma having a good game. And my consideration was, when Palma goes off and Bernabeu comes on, we've effectively given up in the game at that point. That's just such a significant drop in quality that there's no way we're getting 2 to 3 goals after that substitution.
We were never getting 2 to 3 goals anyway. Like,
but
the game was done long before then. But
Palma
I
was
agree
the
with you.
only one with attacking quality.
It's the weirdest decision for a number of reasons. But the Bernabeu thing's there's bigger weirdness about that, right? So he's back in, then he gets put in a wing position, and then he eventually moves back to left back. And you're just thinking, well, Mitchell Frame's come off the bench against Feyenoord and looked extremely competent, and had no fear. Play was direct, and he filled in at left wing, and he is a left back. Again, Madden, Lagerbielke scores a goal, full of confidence, nowhere near the squad. Mitchell Frame, debut at 17, equips himself well, nowhere near the squad. Like that, these kind of decisions, I've got no idea what Rodgers is doing. Couple it with his, how he speaks about the team and the players in public, basically complete lack of quality, throwing them under the bus, blah, blah, blah. He's got to rely on these players. He's got to ask them to go to the well again. Why would they feel motivated? If your boss is slagging you off in public, are you going to perform at your best of your ability? Not
the only thing I can think of with Frame is that there's probably some rule around playing a first team game precludes you from playing for the B team in some way or for some amount of time, because that's honestly the only explanation I can think of, because it's not an age thing, because James McCarthy was playing for the B team at the weekend, right?
Regardless of what it is, Sean, it's not a good enough reason. Like the first team is where we need. You get nothing for the B team. The B League is just for developing players and getting players fit to get into the first team. If he's needed in the first team, he's needed in the first team. It just makes it just makes no. But I don't think it's even as straightforward as that. I just don't understand what Brendan Rodgers is trying to do. Not much of what he's doing and saying at the minute makes any sense to me, and I'm happy to hear otherwise from either of you two or anyone in the comments.
Well, Anthony's posting in the comments because he can't get a word in, apparently.
That's not me, but that's my dad.
that might be Senior.
That's Senior.
That's the problem. Players coming.
He goes by Tony, by the way, but for some reason, in all his official channels, he always goes Anthony, which adds to the confusion. To take his point, though, and take your point as well there, Paul. Again, it's a head scratcher, and I just think tactics, right? And you're saying you're bringing Bernabeu on in the left wing position. What is all that about? At that point, you might as well go to 3 at the back. And you made the comment in the group chat, Paul, that we probably could go to 2 at the back. Take Greg Taylor off and put Bernabeu on as an overlapping, keep Palmer on the park because he's playing quite well, and have Bernabeu overlap him and just have a go. Because if you lose 3-0, not the Hearts had sort of put the cue back in the rack by that point, but you lose 3-0, what's the difference? You may as well have a red hot go. But to take Palmer off, put Bernabeu on, who was erratic, and that's me being generous. And again, not unsurprising because he's not had a kick of the ball in months. I mean, is he come off? I don't even remember coming off the bench in recent times, let alone making the squad.
He had one or two, but not many.
It's been a while, right? And then ultimately he ends up taking Greg Taylor off anyway. And it's like, Brendan Rodgers is supposed to be this tactical genius, and he's supposed to have all these, ideas up his sleeve and, can change inside games. But where is it? And it wasn't there. And he sort of resigned, like you say, Paul, he probably resigned himself to the fact that, we're getting beat here. I can't see where we're going to get 3 goals from. And that, again, is a very, very concerning thing. And again, where's Bernardo? Why is he not getting a run? He played well against Feyenoord. He's played reasonably well in all the days. He's been a good without being like exceptional. And ultimately, we've got to make a decision on this guy by the end of the season. So surely you'd want to feature him, a bit. I just don't get it.
Yeah, my thing with Bernardo now, especially with now Tomoki's injured again, is Carl's had a mixed season, putting it kindly. But I think he's looked better when he's played in the advanced position. And until Rio's back, we've got a gap there. And that's the position that keeps getting rotated through, and Turnbull keeps getting more than his fair share of chances. To me, Bernardo hasn't got enough in his locker on the small bits and pieces we've seen of him to be a creative number 8-10 that can open up defenses. I think he could be a solid 6. So why don't we slot him in there? He's neat and tidy with the ball. He can move it around. He's positionally aware. He's mobile. That's why he's been brought in the Champions League games, because he can close space and he sees attacks building. Stick him in the 6. Allow Carl to get forward. When Carl and O'Reilly are playing up there, we've looked better in those games than we have in the games where we've had another in that other spot. I think that's the fix. So there's 3, Bernardo in 6, Carl forward, swap the wingers opposite sides. I think you do that in the next game, and probably start Kyogo. But the other thing is, so we need to advance the ball vertically and quicker, but we need more movement. You're sitting there when they was really slow to get the ball forward. We know that, so that gives them time to get set, and they can sit deep with a low line. From there, it's hard to get round the back and cut it back because there's hardly any space and they're well set. But then we're statuesque. Like when it eventually ends up back at a centre back who's been asked to dictate the play, everyone in front of him's standing still. There's no movement. There's no rotation. You should have players coming out to in or in to out, and then awareness of who's moving where to create space and create confusion in defensive lines. We're standing absolutely still and walking about. Like it's ridiculously easy to mark, and it gives very little for the play. Carter Vickers and Scales are okay passing through the lines, but they're having to work really hard to find a pass because everybody's marked and nobody's moving. There's so many problems with how we're playing at the minute that you can just keep going. It's just we are. It's just a list.
I think it's a shame. I think it is a shame that Iwata got injured. I think we maybe had just settled on a middle 3 that was maybe starting to show a bit of promise. And then he gets injured, and then all of a sudden we're back to potluck, pick a name out of a hat and put them in that midfield 3. So, a little bit unlucky there, I guess, to a certain extent. But I agree with you. I think the obvious solution there was keeping Cal Mack in more of that 8 role rather than 6. But
to answer your question about Bernabe, I know it's going back a bit. He played 43 minutes of football before coming on at the weekend this whole season.
Well, it showed.
Yeah. So not exactly a ringing endorsement. I think we still got. I think Mahesh is saying in the comments here, give Kwon a go at 6 and play Calmac higher, which is half agreeing with what you guys are saying. But also Kwon has not made his debut yet. So,
but then he was on the bench.
Yeah,
again,
out of nowhere.
He just randomly appears on the bench every now and again. I don't understand it, to be honest with you. He's not played a single minute of first team football. What is he doing on the bench?
Well, not competitively, right? He played the Bilbao friendly. In pre-season, and I didn't see that game because I was overseas. But by all accounts, he had an absolute mare, and we hadn't seen him since. And he's a second tier Korean player. There's no way he's earmarked for the first team this year, maybe ever, to be honest, given how little we've seen of him. But I certainly don't think we're in a dogfight now for the next three or four games, and probably longer, but definitely next 3 or 4 games. I don't think you blood him at this point.
Is Rio far away? I mean, are we close to seeing a tatty back? I mean,
well,
that's
they're
kind of what's going to take.
They were saying post the break, right? So he did his first bit of rehab in Japan, and then he was back, and he's back at Lennoxtown, but I don't think he's training with the main group yet. And yeah, all the noises were that it would be after the break, and he might, he's going to struggle to make the Asian Cup squad because of that.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Like, you're not going to pick him if he's not been playing, and then Kyogo's well off it. Maeda will probably still get a Guernsey if he plays the next couple of games. You can see he'll definitely
Guernsey.
Guernsey.
It's very AFL.
It's an Australian
very AFL
vernacular in the AFL, the Guernsey. But no, he'll definitely get a gig. But Kyogo at the moment, I mean, he struggles to get into Japanese squads at the best of the time. But you picking him
always got more chance of going away with Korea than
I'd say
Kyogo has with Japan. So that might actually play in our favour, especially with Rio as well, because if he's not in that squad, then he can be blooded back in it, and we're not going to be losing him for as long as we might otherwise.
Bucky Thistle.
Well, yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah. And look, I get it, right? You're saying injuries. Abada and Hatate are the only ones still injured, I think, apart from
Hatate's let's be honest, Hatate's a massive miss. Like, he's the one that pushes the ball, attacking through the lines, and he makes good runs off the ball.
The more all these other jobbers doing here, then get him out. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's Quan, home?
This goes back to your point. I think this goes back to your point that's linked to the board and presumably recruitment, mate, because they're all tied in together.
Okay.
Well, this
was a good moment to make my point. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly
go for it.
I was teeing it up for you. There you go.
I was not happy about this sack the board chant, because I'm sitting there and I'm watching it and I'm like, the board didn't the board haven't systematically destroyed the confidence of these players over the last 2 months nobody in the board has gone to the media and called for more and explained that there's not enough quality on the pitch like a dozen times since we first played in the Champions League or whatever it was. That's not on the board that's doing that. And the
board hired the guy that did it.
Yeah, fair enough. But like, to knee jerk just say sack the board, right? Other than you can, okay, so Paul, your point there is all problems trace back to decisions they make. Okay, fair enough. But that also kind of ignores the point that, right, what happens is much more nuanced than sack the board, right? Imagine tomorrow that like they all resigned en masse. What would we do then? Right at that point, like we get someone new in, it doesn't know what the hell to do, couldn't sign a player, wouldn't know how to have the phone number for Adidas, right? So it's like sack the board, right? I get you're venting, but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. It shows a lack of understanding of the nuanced intricacies of how a football team and operation works, and it's very knee-jerk. And I'm going to be quite embarrassed if we don't comfortably beat Livingston and we've got a bed sheet on the bars outside Lennoxtown or whatever it is that people do with when they're really unhappy about how the team's going. How's this? We're now 5 points clear and the other team have 2 games in hand. What do you make of that, guys? Is that
okay? All right, I'll take you up on that point, Paul. Sorry, Sean.
Yep.
I think the feeling at the end of the last season is we won a treble, right? We want to continue our domestic dominance and try and improve in the Champions League. We signed 9 players in the off-season. We lost our manager. We lost Jota. We lost Carl Starfelt. Aaron Moy retired. So they're 3 stars, right? We signed Maja Naroski, 5 million quid. Barely kicked the ball, being injured, but again, questions around his attitude. Luis Palma, 4.75 million. He gets a start. So you say, that's fair. Gustav Akabielka, 3.4 million quid. Too slow, apparently. Stephen McGowan this week saying he's up for sale in January, even though he scores the winner against Feyenoord, right? Teodoro home, 3 million quid. Roger says he needs to develop and fill out. He's not ready yet. Yang, 2.5 million. Well, we saw him, blow up a couple of weeks ago. So he's back on the training ground. Won't see him for a while. Tilio, 1.75 million. Barely seen him. Kwon, 1 million. Haven't seen him. Awata, just under $1 million. Unfortunately injured. I think, I'll still stand by my point that he deserved a run earlier. And, I think given our missing players, he's, he was the one that fit into that midfield three. Nathaniel Phillips on loan. He's disappeared at the squad all of a sudden because obviously, his performance the week before was rubbish. And then Bernardo.
Every week's been rubbish. I'm not having that Nat Phillips is a good player. And I said it after one game that he was Shane Duffy.
You're not getting any argument out of me, Sean. To take you back to your point, about the board, right, is that we wanted to take a quantum leap and really not just sort of like stand on Rangers' chest, but we wanted the foot to be so far on their throat that there's no oxygen getting in. And at the moment, we are giving them CPR. We are bringing them back into this title race because we are playing shithouse. They are not a good side, but we are turning this into a title race on our own. And they've got a new manager. They've found a new impetus.
And they've coughed up the first trophy of the season as well.
They've picked up a trophy, so that will give them another bounce. That gives the manager a bit more time. The fans get around them. We are turning this into a right contest. And we've only got ourselves to blame. And I can understand the frustration of the fans. And I know you're saying, it's not fair to blame it at the board. But
I'm not saying it's unfair. I'm saying it displays a lack of understanding of the situation.
It's an overall frustration at the situation because we should be going like that. And at the moment we are like, I suppose we're a bit like this because depending on the performance, some weeks it's like, yeah, it's pretty good. All right, we're heading in the right direction. Like that Feyenoord result, you think 2-1, a couple of million quid in the bank. Not that we need more money in the bank, but a couple of million quid in the bank. Good result in Europe. Get that monkey off our back. All right, let's go out the game against Hearts on the weekend and let's get a win, get 3 points and carry this momentum. And then we lose 2-0. It's like, it's incredibly frustrating because you sort of say to the players, where's the mentality? Where's that mentality from the last 2 seasons of we never stop? It's just all of a sudden it's just disappeared. So
it's not even just,
I can understand that the fans are looking for someone to blame and, they were booing Santa, so it's not Santa's fault. But I can understand.
Ask for 3 points, Santa.
I know. All we're asking for is 3 points, and Ange Postecoglou. No. So I just think that for me is our recruitment was very speculative when it could have been a little bit more curated. I think you added up, Paul. That was about what, 20 million quid?
It's about 20. It's about 20 million quid. So we've spent the Jota money pretty much, and maybe a little bit more, and we're sitting on 70 plus what we'll get from Champions League. That's probably not been paid yet. So basically, give or take, that's the best part of 100 million quid. Now I want us to have a cushion, and I want us to be well run, but we don't need to be Scrooge McDuck. Like we don't need to be sitting on pots of gold. We said it at the beginning. We said it back at the beginning of the season in the summer. We said we probably need 4 signings, and if we spend between 6 and 10 million on 4 signings, we move to the next level, even with the players we've lost. And we instead, so what's that? 24 to 40 million, which we've got the budget for. Instead, we spend 20 with a net position of 1 starter, and look, some of these guys may come good in a year or 2. They're all on 5-year deals. And a guy like Lagerbielke, if he doesn't fit, we'll probably get our money back. And since we've signed him, he scored a Champions League goal. He's played for Sweden. He scored a goal for Sweden. And he's been named the Swedish League's best defender, even though he left them before the end of the season. So we'll
must be good.
All of that's happened while he's been on our books and not playing. And to be fair, like we were critical of him anyway, but it was early days. And I don't think he is necessarily the right fit. But prior to the Champions League performance, he had 5 league starts and 5 clean sheets and 5 wins. Now we'd trip over ourselves in delight to get 5 clean sheets and 5 wins in a row now. So regardless of what you think of him more broadly, that's his record in a Celtic shirt, including the win at Ibrox. So it's just I keep coming back to it being a head scratcher. And I look, I'm with both of you in this. It's a bit much to be calling for sack the board, but this is legacy from the 10 season, because we weren't in the ground back then. We couldn't show the frustration to the board. They got off very lightly at that. Yeah, there was a few protests outside the ground, but because of COVID, they didn't get it. They didn't get it in the neck publicly. So the fans have seen frustrated. Like, obviously, there's still legacy fans that didn't want Rodgers back, and this is a perfect opportunity for them to vent frustration. But no one's happy that Law, like, I don't think Law was ever away, but I think Ange Postecoglou was a strong enough character to make certain demands, and they were willing to do that. And for whatever reason, Rodgers is rolling over and getting his belly tickled, or was originally was able to, or happy to be that for the first period. Because another thing is, you've got no idea what's going on, because he tells you one different thing every other week. He, at the beginning of the season, I'll work with the players I'm given. I don't sign players to the recruitment teams, and that's brilliant. And we've done a great job with that in my absence. That's really developed. Mark Law's got that sorted. And then he's constantly banged on about quality, which suggests he wasn't happy with recruitment, despite saying he would be happy to deal with recruitment. He's also said at the AGM, he signs off every, he rubber stamps every signing. So is he rubber stamping signings, or isn't he? Everybody's going, well, he's not his signing. That's why he's not playing him. That's why he can't make a bench. He's made digs about Lagerbielke and Navrojski in press conferences and that's why they've not been included. He had a dig about Lagerbielke, and then in the post-match, he said some really nice things about him, how he was put the right attitude in training, and he's just been waiting for his chance. So he's contradictory on players and broader club issues from 1 week to the next, or 1 month to the next. So it's just a very, and look, Rodgers is an egotist, and he's a polished individual. You only need to look at how he turns himself out, how he's changed his physique and his appearance, and we know he's an egotist. So he's not daft, but why does he sound like he's bipolar? Like I was
going to say, you said that you're describing narcissistic behavior. They're not bipolar.
Well, it is narcissistic, but he's borderline bipolar, because he said, and I think he's savvy enough to be shooting barbs where he wants to shoot them. But to me, he's just got a scattergun out. Yeah, the board deserve a bit of a poke, and so does the recruitment team. But I'll go back to my earlier point. I can see no rational point why you do public digs at the players that you're going to have to go back to and rely on to go to the well for you again until you can replace them. Give them a boot in private, behind closed doors. Give them the hairdryer treatment, but don't come out every week to the press and slag them off. Like, I just don't see any benefit in doing that whatsoever.
I get what you're saying about the bipolar, and its reason is it's as narcissistic behavior, but the reason being that he's changing tracks between preserving his own reputation and trying to boost the confidence of the players under his charge. So, and those two things aren't melding together at the moment. So that's why it's coming across as that kind of polarity. And what you're saying, Anthony, about the point you're making about the transfer spending. Well, if we sack the board, Mark Lawwell and Brendan Rodgers are the two people signing off on those players, recruiting on them, and they're not on the board. So I don't know if sacking the board is going to solve that problem, right? The only way you can really make it a board, and I get the nepotism thing, right? But we're on to like quite close to an hour right now, so I'm going to just like cut it off here and circle back to what we like to finish on, which is, and we've not talked about it yet, and I did actually want to talk about it, is there were actually a couple of players that played well at the weekend, and in my opinion, and Brendan Rodgers' opinion, we talked earlier about Palma playing well. I thought he was one of the better players on the day, and I thought in spells, I thought Callum McGregor was really good. And if you look at the stats around it, he, like on the objective stats, he was technically the highest rated player in the game, even above Florian Shankland, who got quite high stats as well. And the other person that I actually thought, and I know you guys are saying that he should have taken more responsibility at the first goal we lost. But I actually thought Liam Scales had a great game, getting in front of his men and really not giving Hearts anything down that side. He really put his body on the line there. So I would be choosing between those three for who was the best performer for Celtic. And honestly, I could be persuaded on any of them, but yeah, I think I'd have to go with Callum McGregor. Even if it wasn't as consistent as I would like to be, it's hard, right? I just think he has more quality than Scales and had more quality the weekend, even if he couldn't do it on his own. Paul?
None of them.
None?
I've got somebody, but it's not none of them.
Is it Santa?
No. I think
If you said
I think we're being overly generous on Palmer. I think he missed a good chance, as we talked about earlier. He didn't create too much, and he checked back constantly. And he's one of the main reasons we didn't create enough clear-cut chances for the strikers. Scales, I've already sort of given my view on. He's okay, but he seems to have been elevated way above his actual ability just because of how he's been asked to fill in, and that's been admirable. But he's nowhere near the quality we need if we want to move this team forward and be a force in Europe.
I agree. It was a low bar to be the best player at the weekend.
Yeah, no, it's a very low bar, and Carl, he's frustrating me at the minute. Like he's still technically a good player, but he's way off the level he needs to be. For me, it was CCV by a clear distance. He's, okay, we lost 2 goals, but the free kick was definitely not a free kick, so there's no blame there for me. And he marshaled his side of the pitch pretty well, and his forward passing was better than most people's. So it's a low bar. I'm not saying it was his best game ever, but I can't really level too many, finger points at him for poor things. So it's more a case of best of a bad lot for me.
So we've got 1 Calmac, 1 CCV. Where are you going with, Anthony?
You're sort of swaying me, because I was leaning towards Palmer. I think I will, because I think this sums up where we're at the moment. Is like it's all bit part performances. Like it's not like you can say clear standout, really solid 8, 9 out of 10. Everyone at the moment's a 6 or a 7, and it's very subjective. And you could argue the toss. And yeah, Palmer probably should have sold the dummy on that shot and draw the defender and then had his shot. But it set up for him, and he did what he did. But for me, Palmer. But again, I can totally understand where you guys are coming from. For me, I'm sorry, but Liam Scales, if he's a good defender, will win that header because the ball sailed over his head. I know he sort of got tangled up with AJ, but he's there to try and win the header. The free header, and a better centre half, I think, wins that header. But
I feel like he misses headers on the cross he misses headers on the cross more often. Yeah, pretty frequently. We haven't really been punished too often from it, but it happens.
We got punished on the weekend.
Yeah, we did. And then there's a few that you should have, like the Martin Boyle chance is absolutely gilt-edged in the Hibs game where he gets caught in the right-hand channel and it's over him. And he's lost Boyle and he's in acres of space, and he makes a hash of it. But we pointed out then it happens a few times every
It's a limitation. It's his limitation. He's playing well for for who he is and where he's come from. But again, he's no Carl Starfelt, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
Since it's a split decision, I'll just maybe give the edge, the final vote to Mahesh. Most of the data sites agree it's Palma, so you've got him back.
Thanks, Mahesh. Cheers, pal.
Other than that, we'll sign off there. That's just about an hour. Can you please like our episodes if you're watching on YouTube? Please follow us on the social medias along the top here, and on the comments, you'll see them in there as well. Thanks to everyone that jumped in the comments. It was quite quiet at the start, but it's great everyone joining in. James Floyd says, "Hail, hail, troops. Have a grand Christmas." Appreciate all the contributions and everyone that's joined in and is still listening right now, which is still a few people. Other than that, is that the last one before Christmas? It is.
Are we?
Are we doing a Christmas? No.
I think I might be busy on Christmas Day doing other things.
We'll see what we can do. We might be able to do something around it. Maybe not quite on Christmas.
Well, there's 2 games. There's the 23rd and the 26th. So we should try and get in before before
Yeah.
the 30th, I would say.
We'll work something out, guys. And the other thing, lads, if you're listening and you're still listening at this point in time, if you can recommend a Christmas movie that you like, put that in the comments section and let us know what your favorite Christmas movie is to watch, because we all need a wee bit of cheer or a bit of a laugh right now.
While we're talking about cheer and laugh, I was going to give Ida Cinch. It's a long time since we've done this, right? But Ida Cinch moment of the week.
What was it?
Derek Adams.
Oh, yeah.
The
Derek
Grinch.
Adams, yeah.
The Grinch.
Scottish football is worse than the league. Yeah.
What an absolute clown. He's come from Morecambe, who were like in League Two, doing next to nothing. And he comes up in the same week as we have 3 European wins, Celtic, Rangers, and Aberdeen winning against good sides. And he says Scottish football's atrocious. He's an absolute clown. If he didn't want to be, what chance have we got promoting the game if the people working in it are slagging it off from the inside? It's just ridiculous.
He also said that after watching his own team play for 97 minutes, so
his team that he's trying to create, try to push it forward. Are we doing our thought for last final thought?
We're over an hour, but go for it quickly.
So I don't know if Anthony's got TV or anything else, but I got a band to recommend. Album this week. I've been had singles the last few weeks, but I've stumbled upon a Scottish band called Neon Waltz. They're from Wick, of all places, up in Caithness. Debut album came out in 2017. Totally missed it. Totally passed me by. But the new album came out a couple of months ago, called Honey Now. Kind of indie, sort of. They've supported Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, the Coral, and Australia's own DMAs, and they're not exactly like DMAs, but that's probably the closest sort of those 3 bands they sound like. They were picked up initially by Oasis's old manager Marcus Russell, so they've got some good sort of bands around them, and it's a decent album. So the band's called Neon Waltz, and the album is called Honey Now. And interestingly, they sponsor John O'Groats FC. They've bought them some kits and they've got the band name on the front of the shirt.
Anthony?
I was trying to say, Shane's just said here, Scrooged is a good Christmas movie. Yes, I agree, Shane. And go to bed, you vampire, because it's past midnight in Melbourne. So yes, I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, because we probably won't get on before Christmas. So have a Merry Christmas, and we'll endeavour to get on before the new year.
And I don't have any media ready to recommend, to be totally honest with you. I am just been up to it with Celtic and other life things. So I'll just say Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and Io Saturnalia and all those other things. And I'll see you all soon. Feliz Navidad, yes. The least knobby dot, as they say. Okay, right. Take it easy, troops. Hail, hail, and we'll see you hopefully before the new year.
Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.